I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Blood and honey, blood and honey, blood and honey go together not at all, it's funny. Yeah, I saw the trailer. I actually saw it a few days ago when it first premiered, and I've been going back and forth on whether or not I actually want to say anything about it, but I think I do. And I think I've finally organized my thoughts to a point where I can say them coherently. Well, as coherently as I'm ever able to. Now, for those who don't know, the original books of Winnie the Pooh and the Adventures in the Hundred Acre Wood by A. Milne went into the public domain. Specifically the books. Now, the versions that are made by Disney, those are not in the public domain. Those are still owned by Disney. But the source material, the original books are, which means as long as you are drawing from the books and as long as whatever you do doesn't bear a direct resemblance to something from the Disney movies, you're now allowed to use Winnie the Pooh, the Hundred Acre Wood, and all those other characters in any way you want. In anticipation of this, people began posting different joking things about it. One that I saw pop up the most frequently noted how Winnie the Pooh would be joining the ranks of the Cthulhu mythos as a public domain work, and how people were free to do with this whatever they intended. Obviously meant to be a joke, because, combining something that embodies childhood innocence with something that embodies nihilistic horror, that's just a mix that's too ridiculous to take seriously. You can get some funny material out of it. The rabbits in the walls, the owl that came to Sarnath, Rue Animator, but it's obviously just going to be funny. No one is actually thinking that Winnie the Pooh could actually translate into horror, right? Well, apparently somebody did, because the books went into public domain, and exactly 5 minutes later, Blood and Honey was announced. Yes, it was a Winnie the Pooh horror movie, complete with a promo image giving us a glimpse of the weird, creepy, grotesque look that Pooh would have in the movie. And now we've got the trailer, and I gotta say, it looks bad. Now, I want to clear some things up before I get into saying why it looks bad. First and foremost, I am not actually going to make the argument that this movie should not exist. Since the material is in the public domain, and since I support the idea of artistic expression, technically, the people making this movie have every right to do so. Now, as much as I believe in the idea of artistic expression, I also believe in the old saying that just because you can doesn't mean you should. But that's a lesson some people have to learn the hard way, and I can't teach it to them. Also, if you think my assessment of this trailer is based solely on the idea of getting clicks for hating something I haven't seen yet, you should actually know that there is something in the trailer that has me intrigued. Something that has me thinking, if it actually was handled the right way, it could work. And that's the part with Christopher Robin. You've seen the trailer, you know the parts I'm talking about. Christopher Robin and his fiancée, because apparently he's old enough to have a fiancée now, are going to the Hundred Acre Wood so Chris can introduce her to all of the friends he grew up with. But as they go, and as they enter, it becomes apparent that something's not right, and there's just this steady build as they're exploring, and they're seeing all these signs that something really horrible happened while Christopher Robin was away, building up to that moment where Pooh and Piglet attack. That actually does seem interesting to me, because it's tapping into some primal childhood fears that I think all of us have experienced at one point or another. Think about it. Whether it was the first time you were shipped off to summer camp, or the first time you took a long trip, maybe with family, maybe for school or something, a long trip that brought you away from home. You might have had the thought cross through your mind for the first time ever of what you would do if you didn't have a home to go back to. If, while you were off at summer camp, your parents moved away without telling you. If, while you were on that family vacation, you came back to a town that was either gone or unrecognizable. That fear is something that a child does feel, of course, and to an extent, adults feel it too. That's why so many precautions are taken before leaving the house. You make sure the stove is off, the hair dryer is unplugged, all that stuff, because you don't want something to happen to your house while you're gone. And if something does happen, you come back and you see it burned down or it's been broken into or something, that is a devastating feeling. I haven't experienced it myself, thank God, and I hope I never do. I live in a relatively crime-free area, but still, it is a horrible feeling. I can just imagine it as a writer, as a storyteller. With the summer camp variant of what if my parents move away, there's also that fear of abandonment. And just a general fear of abandonment. What if my parents decide to get rid of me at some point? What if I'm given up for adoption? Who knows why? They might come up with any reason or no reason at all. That concern is something that speaks to children. And I'm not saying this movie is for children, of course, but considering it's based on children's characters, it does seem like the Christopher Robin portions are kind of going with that. Going with taking those childhood fears and bringing them to an extreme, gory conclusion, where Christopher Robin was away from his home for a while and he comes back to find something horrible happened while he was away, but also Pooh and Piglet, who are apparently the only survivors of whatever that Holocaust was, feel like they were abandoned by him. That does intrigue me. And I feel like if that was what the movie intended to be about, it might actually be interesting. It might actually be good. Now, I say it looks interesting, but I have a feeling it won't even take up 10 minutes of the total runtime. It's probably just going to be the very beginning to set up the premise, and the reason I think that is because the rest of the trailer looks completely disconnected from that. It looks like a generic slasher movie where a bunch of young 20-somethings go to an isolated area to have fun and do all the stuff they can't do in civilization. And then there are killers who show up and start picking them off one by one. It's just that this time the killers happen to be Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. If they even are literally Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. Looking at the designs, it seems like they're actually people in costumes. Like just regular people in regular clothes with masks that happen to look like a bear and a pig. It almost leaves me wondering if maybe one of the twists, if you will, is that the Hundred Acre Wood characters weren't the magical stuffed animal friends of Christopher Robin, but instead a bunch of weird furry creeps who lived in the forest and went nuts when their child, who they took a bizarre shine to, left. I hope that's not the case for a great many number of reasons. The most significant one being it would completely destroy the idea of even using these characters. I feel that if you're gonna make a Winnie the Pooh horror movie, you gotta commit to it. But, even so, looking at the trailer the way it is, I don't think they did really commit to it. Because, as mentioned, it just looks like a generic slasher movie. Look at those portions of the trailer that have nothing to do with Christopher Robin and his discovery of what happened. Does it actually look like there's anything unique about it? Anything that really stands out other than how the killers look? Nothing stands out to me. Winnie the Pooh and Piglet are wearing like lumberjack clothes. and using axes and machetes and clubs. I mean, there are objects associated with these characters too. At least give Pooh one of those honey scoop things. Those things that have the ball at the end with rings dug into it that you dip in the honey. It's in the Honey Nut Cheerios commercials. You must know it for that. Give him one of those, but it's big and made of rusty metal. That would be an iconic weapon. Instead, in the poster, he's holding a hatchet. Because, when you think of Winnie the Pooh, you think of a hatchet. That's the problem. It just seems like set dressing. It just seems like the filmmakers took Leatherface, removed his mask, and smeared Pooh on his face. It just kind of feels like I can see through the trick. Because it is a trick. That's what I'm convinced of. They're calling this Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey a Winnie the Pooh horror movie to trick you into seeing a generic movie. Because that's what it looks like. Look at the trailer again. Maybe it is just a bad trailer. Good movies have had bad trailers in the past. But do you really think there's anything about this that stands out as Winnie the Pooh other than the look? If it's just the look, then it literally is just the look. It's an aesthetic. It's set dressing. It's making something look like it's more interesting than it actually is. And knowing that, I just don't feel like I can really get behind it. It all just feels like a gimmick. And the surprising thing is, the director is already giving interviews about how he wants to do the same thing with other public domain yet still associated with Disney properties, like Peter Pan and Thor, because, Thor is a Marvel character too these days. So it seems like he's not only implementing a gimmick, but he's also counting on that gimmick drawing people in multiple times, which I don't think is going to happen. If the movie is really as generic as it looks, then people are going to go to the theater, be disappointed, and not bother going to see anything else by this guy. At least not if he's doing the gimmick still. And even the people I've spoken to who said they are going to see it are mostly saying they want to see it because they think it looks bad. Like they know it's a train wreck and they just want to see how bad of a train wreck it is. I would be lying if I said I didn't have a little bit of morbid curiosity myself, but I just am not that curious. I don't necessarily want to sit in a theater to see this thing. Maybe once it's streaming, I don't know, but beyond that, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. It feels like it's gonna be bland. Like it's just hooking you in, promising one thing, when it's actually not that thing. Not entirely, at least. Which is a shame because, like I said, the Christopher Robin portion, it does look interesting. Maybe this could have worked as just like a short film. But instead we're getting a whole movie, and the portion that looks the most interesting is probably just going to be relegated to the prologue. I can't say I'm surprised that this was the first project announced after the books went public domain, but I also can't say it looks like it's going to be worthwhile. Maybe some people are going to see it just out of morbid curiosity, just because they want to see how big of a failure it is, and hey, I can appreciate a good bad movie too. I'm not going to stop you if that's what you want to do. Me personally, though, I think I'm going to skip out on this one while it's in theaters. We'll see. I don't know. It just doesn't look like it's going to be worth it. But those are just my thoughts. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.